So let's talk reading journals. I've been using the same reading journal for about 5 years now. So my profile as a reader is not to collect a lot of data on what I've read. I don't do monthly spreads and weekly spreads. I'm not counting the pages. I'm not cutting out the covers of the books and putting them into spreads. My reading journal really is raw. So currently, my journal is set up where I have categories. I've got biographies and autobiographies, spiritual growth books, young adult, middle grade, and adult. So those are generally the categories that I keep. And I just go through each month in a list format and write down what I've read. I do total them at the end of the year to just keep track of how many books I've read in a year. And other than my morning spiritual devotional reading that I have, I really don't have reading goals. I read seasonally. I read what I have heard someone talk about that sounds interesting to me, and don't really keep my reading journal as a TBR place. However, I've been thinking lately that I would like to organize it differently than it is. The other night I was looking over my reading journal and I was finding myself thinking, oh, I really loved that book. I really loved this book. I could make sure that when my kids are older, that I will remember to circle back to those and be able to share those books with my kids. I read so many books and I think, oh, they would love this, but they're not quite there yet. This way, I will have an ongoing record of books that I want to share with them when they're a little bit older. Secondly, I've noticed that I've ended up with a lot of sticky notes lately where I've jotted down books that I've heard about. I would like to take the books I've heard about and figure out when in the various points of the year I may want to read those. And I also would like to add a little bit more subcategories. So in that vein, I started this fall on a search for finding a bullet journal that I could use for a reading journal. I decided to go with Archer and Olive. This is an Archer and Olive A5 Time for Tea with gold gilded edges and a gold teapot icon that is engraved into the cover of the bullet journal. As I develop it and set it up, I hope you will join me along in that journey. My plan for this is to not have this be a bullet journal for just this year, but rather that, just like my last bullet journal, it would be something that I would use year after year. I'm expecting this one to last me about 3 years, and I am going to show you how I'm going to do that. I have not put anything on the "This Belongs To" line. I'm not the best hand letterer, so I think I'm procrastinating on it, but I'm very proud of myself because I actually did write in this. There was a moment when you have a brand new bullet journal and you're always like, do I really want to write in this? Because there's just a lot of pressure in bullet journaling and I'm not an artist. So I'm just proud of myself for jumping into this. I've thought long and hard and organized and planned out how I wanted my next reading journal to be. So here goes. Right at the very beginning, I have put an index, and I will put where I got all these stamps from. I know I got the book stamps from Studio LTE. I used a heat gun to dry it, and then we got a take and make craft from our local library this season, and it came with some pages ripped out of a book. I did not rip them out. I don't know if I even could, even if it was a book that I didn't want to use, but since it was already done, I decided to use this kind of ripped up letter format. I really like how it turned out. I have not yet filled out the index because, again, this is a work in progress, but the next time you see this, the index will be started. Right after the index, I have January. So my plan here is that throughout the year, January, February, all the way over to December, I am going to put sticky notes in as I hear about books that I want to read during a specific season. So for instance, there's already 2 books that I don't currently have and I don't have space for in my TBR, but I know that I want to read them in the winter season. So it's For the Wolf by Whitten and Snow and Rose by Winfield Martin. So I've already put them on this themed sticky note. It's right in here in January. I've got lists already for February that are in here with sticky notes. March has a couple books on it already, April, etc. And I have a different sticky note theme for each month so that I can keep it kind of straight. I already have a ton of books for October because I love reading in that season. And I've kind of themed them out. So for instance, February is Black History Month, and so I have one already written that I know I want to get with that theme. And then I have these 2 over here for a love theme. There's obviously going to be books that come through that are not part of the themes that I'm reading in or feeling like I'm in the season for, and so that can go in here as well. But my plan for this is not a permanent section where anything gets written down. I may decorate it just to kind of scratch that Bougeot designing itch, but for the most part this just gets moved. So when I get to February, I will pull all of these post-its off and move them to a different part of the journal. So this way I'm tracking what it is that I want to read throughout the year all the way to December. Next, I have a specialty reading list area. In this, I've cut this out of an old reading journal that I had before this one. And these are all the books written by Elizabeth Goudge. I have a coding system here where if I've highlighted them, they are books that I own. I need to update it because I own a few more. And then as I read them, I'm going to check them off because I have a goal of reading all of Elizabeth Goudge's books. If you have not ever read anything by her, I highly recommend The Scent of Water, right here. It is my favorite of hers. Very popular is this Pilgrim's Inn. There's a Bird in the Tree, Pilgrim's Inn, Heart of Family, Desmarches Family trilogy. Very popular, but I loved Scent of Water. So I wanted that in there so I can continue to track my progress on reading all of her books. Next, I have a list of authors to read. I just have a few authors that I am continuing to read, like Louise Penny, and a few authors that I've not yet read at all, which is Brandon Sanderson and Susan Meisner. Just don't want to lose it. Louise Penny's books in the Inspector Gamache series are not officially on a TBR where I'm writing them down each month, but I do want to continue in that series, and so I just want to make sure that that stays on my radar. And then this section is for readathons. I am joining Chantel Reads All Day's Hey Reader, Read Your Bookshelf readathon this year. She's got a theme for each month, and so I just have that written down. So again, I can make sure that as I'm planning my books out for each month that I can see the theme for that month for that readathon. I will put it on a post-it note, keep it in here, and keep track of it that way. Again, nothing is necessarily permanent so far in this. They're just sticky notes that I can move around. Then this is the new releases section. They're just books that I've heard about, seen ads for, that I am interested in getting. I never know if it's actually something I want to keep on my shelf or if I want to wait for the library to get it, but I am going to kind of keep track of these and see if I can find them somehow. This is just an empty blank section. I printed out an extra post-it. I just wanted to have that there in case I wanted to jot something down. The next section is my key for recording the books that I read. So this is the part that becomes permanent. I've just done a quick key here for how I want to write it. I'm going to have the number that I've read. I'm going to have the title of the book by the author. I'm going to have a box underneath that if it's a readathon, I'll check it and write what the readathon is. A star rating. That's questionable. I don't always do that, but I figured I'd put that in there for my wish list. And then the category over here that I will put next to this is either adult, young adult, or middle grade. I have 2 little spots here for a pink and blue dot to see if this is a book that I would like to recommend to my kids. One of the reasons for starting a whole new reading journal is that I want to be able to better track the books that I'm reading to see if they're ones that I want to pass on to my kids, especially since I read so many middle grade. And then I've written some categories here that as I write the books down, I just want to keep it. I don't have dystopian and a few more in here that I may add them. I have a whole bunch of area here to be able to add additional categories. So we are about, we're about a third of the way through this reading journal, and this is where it is permanent. And so I have on the left my sticky note. This was originally in this January section. You can tell it matches the sticky note, and I have these books on my TBR. So these are all books that I just kind of want to read, and it's really kind of willy-nilly. I've drawn symbols to show if it's going to be an audiobook. I've written ebook if it is not a physical book. I have a lot of ebooks and audiobooks. Again, there's Louise Penny. So this is kind of my goal for the month of January. I have stamped January 2022 up at the top so I can track that that's the month that I'm doing this in. And I have written my number. I finished Winter House by Gutterson. It is a mystery and kind of a fantasy, middle grade. Both my kids would love it. And so this is how I'm going to record all of the books that I read. Because I'm a pen person, I do want to share. For writing in here, I am going to use a Uniball Jetstream, and it is going to be a 0.38. I love a really thin pen line. So I've left all of this space. I may decide that I want to decorate. I may decide that I want to add more information, a narrative, thoughts, commonplace journal in this section. But for now, my plan is this is just my list of books. And I may just do 1 month per page. And then this section back here is just the books that I've read. And so I'm going to have a yearly tally that says in 2022, I read this total. And then for subsequent years, I'll just have the total written there. Nothing else but the total. And then this section back here, what I would like to do is show each January I read this many books in these categories. So I'm not sure if I'm going to do a graph on the computer and print it out and put it in here. Most likely that's what I'm going to do. I may also decide to draw something in, but I have this for each month so that I can kind of just see month after month after month over this multi-year time what I've read, how much I've read in each month, just to see the thematic analysis there. And that goes all the way to December, and then that's the end of the planner. So this is the bulk of the planner that I will be writing in. And from here back is the permanent section. From here to the front is the Post-it note sticky section that I will be moving. So as I get to February, I'll go here, put the Post-it note in for February. February starts here. Post-it note, March, all the way through. And this should get me to at least, if I'm on one page for each, it's about 3 years. Thanks so much for watching. I would love to hear what you use for a reading journal, whether it's just a binder that you've got printables in it, or it's a spiral notebook, or if it's a much more artistic reading journal than what it is that I'm using. Please feel free to leave that in the comments below. I love to hear what other people are doing. Until next time.